Um, Hi, this is just a ramen review. My goal is to pretty much spread the joy of ramen in all different shapes and sizes, and pretty much food in general. Um, in these segments, I will be scoring ramen in 4 different categories. First one being packet presentation, so just how well the packet is presented, the colors, the design, how good the ramen looks, and just the general information of the ramen, so that buyers can kind of get the feeling of what to expect, when they're buying a ramen, which I think is pretty important. The broth, one of the staple, factor of ramens, very important. The noodles, the texture, the subtle flavor of the noodle, how well it works with the broth. And this one is kind of a work in progress, but I'm going to call it a joy score. Um, I, um, I try to get the kind of vibe of the whole ramen, and I kind of gauge how genuine the ramen is to how it was created, and just how much happiness, joy, and good feelings I get from the ramen when I eat it. And not only when I eat it, it's also, I guess, when I'm buying it, when I pass by my cupboard and I see the ramen, when I cook it, I think all that really matters, because ramen is good. It's good stuff, man. And so that will kind of be the template for this video, and the rest if I guess choose to do more ramen reviews. And out of these 4 categories, they will be given a combined score out of 40 points as an overall score. So let's look at the first category, packet presentation. Wait, before we do that, I forgot to present the ramen we're doing. So, in honor of the first segment of this series, we will be looking at shin ramen. So, this is kind of a common ramen, and it's not really a ramen I would have wanted to, or it's not really a type of ramen that I'm going to review in this series if I choose to keep doing this. But it's an homage to packet ramen. It's an homage to packet ramen in general. I think this ramen is popular because the flavor is so versatile. It has, I believe, the perfect amount of spice. It may be spicy to some people, but to a lot of the people that I've talked to, it's perfect amount of spiciness. It's savory. The dry packet contents, I feel, complement the overall flavor very well. And I think it's just a great ramen that I need to respect. Always respect the ramen. That's what they always say. And let's get right on to packet presentation. So the first thing you'll instantly notice is this iconic shin ramen symbol right here. I'm not exactly sure what it means, but that's okay. Although, truth be told, if I saw this symbol anywhere outside of this packet, I probably wouldn't recognize it. But if I saw a different symbol on a shin ramen packet, I would probably say, hey, that's not shin ramen. Anyway, that's the first thing you notice. Second thing you notice is the colors. So majority of the packet is red, and that's, I think, kind of to say, hey, this is a spicy ramen, as it says in the front. It is made by Shin, which is a popular food producing company of Korea, and it does have some, East Asian characters here. I know this says shin, which is, shin in Korean, but the rest I'm not really familiar with, so I apologize for that. And here we have the picture of the actual ramen itself. So we can see there's some beef here, there's some shiitake mushroom and some red pepper flakes, and I don't know, this is like parsley or something, I'm not really sure, or green onions, and this mystery vegetable, I'm not really sure what that is, and then the noodles. So this kind of symbolizes the dried packets, as we'll see later, and it says in bold letters Shin Ramen, and all it says honestly is gourmet spicy. I don't really know what they mean by gourmet. I don't know, it's a high class ramen or something, I don't know, but we'll see. And I'm not really sure what this thing is supposed to be, like this little like heart monitor, like an EKG or something. But I guess it, you know, it doesn't look too bad. But all in all, I think Shin Ramen does a pretty good job of delivering its kind of vibe to the buyer at first glance. Whoops. For overall design and information on the packets and overall apparel, I will give this a 7.5 out of 10. Now let's move on to the flavor packets and the dried ramen itself, just to kind of see what we're dealing with here. So the first packet is the dried powder. And so it's this kind of it's a orange-ish. It's got some like white specks in it, powder. It's super fine, and it tastes like Shin Ramen. It's spicy. It's savory. It does have a heavy beef broth taste to it, I guess, and dare I say a little bit creamy. Yeah, it's really good. I always eat some of this too before I cook it. And the second packet we have is the Shin Ramen's dried packets. And so, if I can show you here, we have the green onions that we saw on the front. Majority of the dried packets are the green onions. We have these dried beef chunks, and we have the shiitake mushrooms. I absolutely love the shiitake mushroom in the dried flavor packet, and in the, let me see if I can get some out. And we do have some carrots here, I believe this is carrot, and some dried red pepper flakes. Not too many of these in here, which you know, disappoints me a little bit, but I always try to add some extra to my ramen. And that is the contents of the pre-cooked Shin Ramen. here we are with the finished product, shin ramen. Alright, so usually I'd like to eat this pretty fast so the noodles don't get bloated, but for the sake of this review, we'll be pretty slow. So actually, let me save some noodles here so that these well-cooked noodles will stay unbloated while I review other things. Also, I usually eat 2 or 3 per meal, but for the sake of this review, we're just going to keep it to 1, as the other more exotic ramen I have, I can't afford to eat 2 or 3. So, let's first, I want to talk about the smell. It does have a little bit of a smoky smell. Definitely does have that, beef broth savory smell. As far as it smelling spicy, I don't really know how to explain things smelling spicy, but it does have a bit of a spicy smell, kind of a sting to your nose, I think. The broth is pretty oily. It does look pretty oily, and it is pretty oily. And it has a solid, no, not solid, I'd say pretty, like 85% opacity red color. Not red, I'd say like orange actually. Yeah, orange, sorry. The dried packet vegetables have expanded. As you can see, this is a, oh, what is this? Wait, is that a spinach? Wait. I've never really paid attention because I've never really looked at it up close, but I'm not even going to try to make that focus. Maybe there's a spinach or something in there. So let's go ahead and try the broth. So you're instantly greeted with the spicy kick. Kind of lingers in your mouth, perfect amount of spiciness, and then you notice the savory, umami taste of the broth as well. I kind of want to say it does have a slight seafoody taste to it. See, shoot, I don't want to say that because a lot of people they don't like the taste of seafood or the sea or fish or whatever. But it doesn't have that that fishy taste, but it has kind of like a like a dashi taste to it, if you know it. Anyway, so the broth I think is really good. Anything I would mix rice into I think is really good broth, and I mix rice into this broth all the time after I finish with the noodles. I think I want to give the broth an 8.5 out of 10. Wait, did I give the packet presentation an 8.5 out of 10 too? I think I did. Did I? I'll have to go back and check. My bad. Alright, so now, on to the noodles. So the noodles of Shin Ramen, I think, are pretty iconic. I think, that's a good way to put this. There are a lot of noodles similar to Shin Ramen, but I want to say that Shin Ramen does have its own characteristics in its noodles. I'd have to really just go through different kinds of ramen in one sitting to really point it out, but I really do think Shin Ramen noodles are a little bit unique to their own type of noodles, I guess. So, sad thing is that the noodles do get bloated kind of fast, so you want to eat this between 10 to 15 minutes, or else you're gonna have soft, loose noodles, which, if you don't like, or if you do like, I'm not gonna judge, because, all noodle is good. But I like it when it's just cooked and it barely has that kind of crunch to it, kind of has that rigid texture. That's what I like best. As far as the color, it did change. It does have an orange tint to it. So I'm assuming that's because it has soaked up the broth, which is really nice. I think one of the noodles' biggest job is to, soak up the broth. They got to work together to give you that delicious ramen experience. So let's try a bite of the noodles and see how it is. I mean, I've done this a million times, but for the sake of the video, you know what I'm saying? So I want to describe the texture first. It's super smooth. I like that it's kind of curly like this. It kind of makes slurping them more fun, and a little bit more messier, I guess, because when you slurp it, the ridges kind of get caught up in your lips and the broth kind of goes everywhere. But that's part of the experience of eating shin ramen, I guess. And a lot of different ramens who have the similar texture to this. The actual texture of the ramen itself is really nice. When you bite into it, it's not too. When you bite into it, you really, I guess, it's like you're taking a bite of the broth, and I think that's an important thing for noodles. I think their job is to, they have, several different kind of jobs, but one of the more important jobs, I think, is to kind of deliver the broth to your mouth as well as the noodles, because people usually eat ramen with chopsticks or forks and not with a spoon. If you do eat with a spoon, that's kind of weird, but I'm not judging. And you're not able to get some of the broth. And so, when the noodles are able to soak up the broth like this, and make you feel like you're, drinking the broth as well as eating the noodles, that's really good. Maybe that's why shin ramen gets bloated so fast, because they're so good at soaking up the broth. Wait, what did I just say? Because they're really good at delivering the flavor. Yeah, okay. Got him. So I'd like to give the noodles a score of 9.2. Now let's go ahead and eat the noodles along with the broth. So I'm going to just put some in here, and then get some broth in here. Okay. And while we kind of let that cool down, this is how I like to eat ramen usually. My tongue gets burned pretty easily, and I just don't really like really hot things. So I just kind of let it cool. I don't want it to get too cold. I mean, I still want it to be warm and everything, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, so green onions. It's tastes like green onions. I really don't think it being freeze dried and then I guess rejuvenated compromised the flavor or anything. Well, actually it does. It has less of a green oniony taste. The flavor is I guess bleached out, but it's still good. Let me see if I can find a shiitake in here. Well, here's a carrot right here. Not that crunchy, but still does add texture to the ramen. And as far as the flavor, the dried packets adding flavor to the ramen, I don't think it really changes that much. I've eaten shin ramen without the dried packet plenty of times, and I just really can't taste a difference. But it does add texture, I guess, especially near the end, since the dried packets kind of sink to the bottom while you eat your noodles. And so most of the dried packets contents are going to be eaten when you're drinking the broth at the end. Let's see. Well, oh, here's a huge piece of shiitake. I've actually never seen one this big. Rip, that won't focus, but that's okay. Wow, that's really cool. I guess this is like a sign that this video is good. I don't know. Chewy. It does have a hint of the actual shiitake taste. Very good. Now let's try the noodles with the broth. And I think that's just even better, you know, getting a few scoops of broth along with your noodles. It does kind of leave a kind of a spicy feeling in your throat, and I really enjoy that. Not when it goes on the wrong pipe, but that spicy tingling sensation is kind of kicking in, and my face is just getting a little bit hot. But that's just one of the joys of eating shin ramen and spicy food in general. So, you know, let's finish this ramen and go ahead and give it an overall score. Okay, well, if I didn't eat a meal before this already, I probably would finish off the rest of the broth with rice. But, you know, I don't want to go too ham on the ramen, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Shin Ramen. That was a very good meal, or second meal. And, excuse me. Let's go over the joy score. So, I'm going to be a little bit biased when, you know, talking about Shin Ramen, because it's honestly a part of my childhood, it's part of my life. It's kind of a lifestyle really for me, or a big part of my lifestyle for me, which is ramen, and Shin Ramen being in my lifestyle because it's ramen. It's delicious, it's great with friends, great by yourself, great with a lot of things like vegetables, eggs. I usually add eggs, but for the sake of the review, I want to keep it vanilla. Meat, just a whole bunch of different things. Kimchi especially. Sometimes I like to add different kind of seasonings to it, different sauces and everything. It's really fun to mess around with because the flavor is just so versatile. It can really work with anything. It's basically savory beef flavor along with just a kick of spiciness. Anyway, just, you know, seeing how much I can go on and on about Shin Ramen, I gotta give the joy score a 10 out of 10. And I feel like 10 out of 10s are going to be pretty rare. Maybe not, I just really like ramen, so, you know, maybe not. So, 10 out of 10 for the joy score. So, with a packet presentation score of 8, a broth score of 8.5, and a noodle score of 9.2, and a joy score of 10, that gives us an average score of 8.9. A solid score for a solid ramen. But wait, there's more. I realized that I left out a category in my category scoring list. So in addition to packet presentation, broth, noodle, and joy score, I want to add a value score. I think value is important to all of us, and we want to get the best bang for our buck. So we're going to use Maruchan's chicken flavored ramen packets as kind of a gold standard. I think it's fair because a lot of people know what it tastes like. I think you're not gonna find a lot of people that think it doesn't taste good. And it's very accessible, and I think it's a good ramen to compare with other ramens. So Maruchan ramen packets come at about 29 cents per packet, and Shin ramen packets come at about 87 cents per packet. So the Shin ramen packet being about 3 times more than a Maruchan packet, I think that's pretty fair, honestly, because the Maruchan packets are actually pretty small. And the Shin ramen, I'd say, is about maybe 20% more noodle, 20-30% more noodle, maybe even 40. No, probably just 20 to 30% more noodle. And you also do get a dry packet, and it's, I think, more the flavors. There's more depth to the flavor for Shin ramen. I don't want to talk down on the Maruchan ramen, but as far as this review goes, I think the value is pretty good. But then again, almost $1 for one pack of ramen. Where do you draw the line, right? So, in my opinion, for its flavor, for its enjoyment, I'm gonna give the Shin ramen a value score of 7.5. So, since I'm too lazy to go back and edit the first bit I did where I explained the scoring system, I'll just redo it right here. So, with a value score of 7.5, averaged in with the rest of the scores I gave previously, we have a new final score of 8.6. So, Shin ramen, thank you for everything, and ramen, bless ramen. Thank you for watching the video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm just kidding. Don't do any of that. Actually, just do whatever you want. But just enjoy ramen.